Are there any questions from last week's class? You had some time to think about it? Let's see. Are there any questions? Oh. I'm going to refer to the handouts this week. I didn't really last. When I was preparing this and I found the quote, suffering and pain are inalienable facts of life, I stopped and that gave me a moment to pause. And like anything with the teachings, I really want to think, is this really the truth? Well, this is really the truth for me. And then last week I spent a fair amount of time talking about the reason we experience suffering is that it ultimately comes from our mind. And then I talked a lot about the mind and gave examples of that. Has anybody got any questions or problems with either of those two sentences? Nobody's going to put their hand. Like I said, do you want to have a discussion group now? And I missed part of the meeting last week, so Venerable Manyi asked me how the discussion group went afterwards, and I went, it didn't. and Venerable Manyi in her wisdom said, oh, it's because of the topic. I said, thanks. So the first sentence in part 1 of page 1 says that the Buddha taught that suffering is caused by afflictions of craving. And we talked about wants and desires becoming excessive, leading into craving, leading into greed, the first poison that we talked about. The second mentioned in this line is anger, another poison, and then attachment. Well, don't we just get attachment? I understand one of your questions was about attachment, attaching to attachment upstairs. Was that a discussion group?
So the two questions we were asked to consider, one was is it possible to have suffering if there's no cause to suffering? That's one. And the second was why do we attach to suffering, to the causes of suffering? Why do we attach to the things that make us suffer?
All right. So that go down well?
My group got into the first one.
So attachment to anger, attachment to greed, attachment to ignorance, the other third poison. And then listed on is suspicion, arrogance, and wrong views. Wrong views is the fourth noble truth. And who's doing that? Who's doing the fourth noble? Is it Martin? Martin will get into this. But I need to mention it because it is a problem for us in suffering, our views. And I also mentioned last week that in view of wanting and desiring isn't bad. And I started off last week saying, whatever brought you here on your path, maybe you're just desiring some information. Maybe you want to improve your life. You want to improve your meditation. Whatever the deal is, that's not bad. Again, when it becomes excessive, when it leads to craving, ultimately leads to greed. And in that third paragraph down, it mentions even when we might want power or material gain, but we get possessed. We get a slave to this. Have you ever been just gripped in so much anger? I have. You can't step out and be mindful, but it's like you're really possessed. You want to get even, you want retribution, whatever the deal may be. I talked last week about me quitting smoking. Well, there was a time that my doctor said I had to cut back on coffee. In fact, my doctor said it'd be good if you could cut coffee out completely. I said, okay. Not a big deal. I'll just drink more water. By my second day, I went into first thing in the morning to gas up my vehicle. I don't know to this day what the attendant said to me, but I pulled his tonsils out through his mouth. And as I'm driving away, I thought, where did that come from? Like, I don't even know what he said to me, but suddenly the poor man, I was going to say, but I really did. I drove away and I went right to Tim Hortons and got a small coffee. I was possessed with caffeine and didn't know it. And we get all kinds of examples of this. In the middle paragraph, it says the final result is accumulation. Oh, yeah. But this is the mental forces of all this accumulation of all this, these hindrances and these cravings, based on actions, our words, our thoughts, karma. They follow us. And the last sentence says that desire and anger are inherent in oneself. And that's true. And that also is important to realize. Because as you start working through the process of really getting deep into yourself, or even on more of a superficial level, in just stopping and being aware. Like me driving away after I heard that core attendant's feelings. But I wasn't a Buddhist back then. That's no excuse. That's ignorance. But it all feeds into itself, and the accumulation gets greater and greater. It's important to recognize it, to stop. Now, the second to last paragraph on part 1, page 1, it talks about the attachment to sense objects. And this attachment and not knowing, the ignorance, the third poison, that they are impermanent, that it doesn't have to be that way, really causes dukkha, or suffering. Now, I use the example of sense objects with the chocolate cake. And I guess Lori's not here. Is Lori here? Oh, there she is. Hi, Lori at the back. Yes, I think you like chocolate cake, I think. Okay. So at this point, and I ran this by Venerable Manyi.
You brought chocolate cake?
Good one. No, about introducing a little bit more, so that you guys are real serious seekers. So where's our little guy today? Yeah. Like, what a shame. So I'm going to introduce a couple of teachings that we're going to go into much deeper detail at another time, another semester. I think initially it was planned for next semester, but next semester looks like it's going to be a short one, so it may be the one following this. So one of the teachings that really helps you understand sense objects is called the 18 realms. The 18 realms. And what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with, realms, in English, it means the word types. T-P-E-S, types. Okay, when it's translated. And the other one is data. We understand data. Types are data that comes into our very being. Now, the 18 realms, just so you understand, they're divided into 3 groups of 6. And it's all got to do with your sensory perception, okay? So the very first one has to do with our sense organs. Our sense organs. Okay, so we have the 6 of them: eyes, your ears, your tongue, your body or touch, and your mind. 2, 4, 6, okay? These, eyes, ears, tongue, nose, thank you. Very important, nose, especially smelling that cake. Thank you. I even counted 6. Boy. Diluted mind here. Okay, so these are known, the organs are known as roots. You will see it expressed as roots in a lot of your books, and it's important that you do understand this because it's the root of where things are coming in through your organ. Now what they give you is what we call an objective awareness. An objective awareness of what's going on. The next group of 6 are based on what they call the 6 senses. And what do we get from eyes? We get sight, or we get seeing. Ears, hearing. Tongue, tasting. Poor nose, smelling. Body touch, or touching. And mind, thoughts, or a little bit more mind objects. Objects of the mind. We'll get into that in a minute. So these 6 senses are known as, here we have roots. These are known as objects. Okay, we're taking things in. So we have objective, I'm running out of space here, objective awareness, and then we have sensory perception. Okay, any questions so far? Yes, my dear friend.
Okay, sorry. So the 6 objects that you're talking about, I think they're also called 6 dusts, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Dust, like dust on a mirror.
So I believe, okay, so I believe, isn't it actually like not so much the 6 senses, the seeing, but it's actually sights. So it's external color, right, and shape and things like that. Or sounds, or tastes, or smells. Like it's kind of the external, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those things, so the roots are kind of like our sense object, like our sense organs.
The organs, yes.
The next 6 are really kind of external objects.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Just wanted to make a point that they're external.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody get that?
So then
Okay.
instead of hearing, it would be sound?
Yes.
So like
yes.
the sense organs are channels, and then these are the things going through them.
Okay. All right. So then the next 3 has to do with really big time down here with the mind. Because what happens is when you have your objective awareness coming into your sensory perception, or in other words, you're making contact. The big word here is contact with the object. In the mind, our consciousness arises. In Buddhism, they talk about 8 levels of consciousness. The first 6 levels of consciousness have to deal with these sense organs. So the next 6 have to do with the consciousness. So what happens is when they come into contact, you getting this? When the roots come in contact with the object, or the eye is seeing, let's use the cake. That's about the easiest way to do it. When you see the cake, and let's say you've experienced cake before, right away, you have that memory. And the consciousness connects the eye with the seeing, and we call it the eye, and I'll just do it short term here. Consciousness rises. that memory of the cake. And maybe in here with the same thought with the cake, the hearing, maybe you remember when your mother used to make the cake and the mixer going or beating with the fork, or the pans getting greased and dusted so the cake can be put into the oven. So what happens here is the ear consciousness connects, okay? The same with your tongue. You start to salivate when you start to smell the cooking. Oh yeah. So your taste, your tongue consciousness arises with the organ, the nose, the body or feeling, and the mind. The mind consciousness is the big guy here. All of these, now you might think by using the chocolate cake as the example, and I'm going to carry that through, you might think that everybody's interconnected here, but they're not. All of these organs report to the mind. Okay, get that? The eye sees it, it reports right away. The ears hear things, the tongue starts to salivate, the nose smells, the body, you start to feel the icing, the sweetness, yeah. It all goes to the mind so quickly. It seems like they're all connected, but they're not from one to the other. Okay? And this consciousness arises. It is the awareness. So this is important when you're looking at addictions or you're looking at your suffering. Okay? Any questions to this? Oh. I thought I heard a woof woof and I thought, okay, any questions about how the senses? We're going to go into great detail about in another semester on how this works, but it's important because you're going to see this written a lot. And to understand that your eyes see the object, creating the eye consciousness to arise. It comes into contact. I see, I taste, I touch the wood, the feeling arises, and then we like it. We're going to get into the liking bit in just a moment. Any questions about the 18 realms? Yes?
I have a question. You said that the senses were not connected to the root.
No, the senses, this is the root here.
Sorry, okay. Yeah.
It's one to the other.
Okay.
It's one to the other. The eye isn't necessarily like they're not connected to the ear. These are separate organs that connect to the mind.
Okay. How, I don't understand that concept.
Okay.
Because in my head they are connected, so how are they not connected? This thing doesn't work.
Okay.
You have to speak into it.
Oh, okay. I don't understand how they're not connected.
They are connected to the mind.
That's the only thing they're connected to.
At this stage, yes.
You're not speaking into it, that's
Yeah,
what
you
I'm
gotta
looking
speak into it. It happens so quickly, and that's why I use the expression of the chocolate cake. It works so fast that we think it does. It would appear that just because we see it, we start to salivate and we can think. But that's how quickly things are moving to the synapses in the mind. And the consciousness quickly arises as we have this memory, or this feeling, or this cessation that leads to desire and craving. But they're all being rooted to up here. They're not, my eyes aren't connected to my ears.
Does that mean they're not dependent on each other happening?
In this situation, in this scenario, yeah. But I got another one for you. Okay? All right. That may help a little bit more. And the second teaching, and actually if you go to part 2 of your handout, and right under 4 nutriments, you'll see it listed here. If we understand the teachings of the 5 aggregates, that's where it starts off in the first paragraph. Now the Buddha taught another teaching, which of course we're going to get into in much greater detail. the 5 skandhas. Or in this case, I have aggregate. Spell it wrong. G-R-E, gates, G-A-T-E-S. 5 aggregates. That's the English translation for skandhas. The other word that I really like, because it's kind of appropriate here with suffering, is heaps. Now this is your mind and body. The Buddha taught us this to understand really a lot about our body, the senses we get there, what we're taking in, if we really do get it. Now, if we go back and digressing for just a moment, Jesse's class on suffering, if you look at near the end of your chapter on the First Noble Truth, you'll see that they list the 8 types of suffering. And the very last one, and actually, who's got their book handy? Have you found the little paragraphs that that Venerable Master Xing Ying wrote on the 8 suffering? I'd give you a page number, but I got a notebook. Would you mind reading that paragraph?
The 8th is the suffering of the fire of the 5 aggregates, which are the 5 components of existence: form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. They are the building blocks of a sentient being and the means through which all suffering occurs. When the 5 aggregates come together, they become the unlimited fuel source that produces pain and suffering life after life after life.
Thank you. I just want to tie that together because this is where the 5 aggregates, the 5 skandhas come together, and it will tie in the sense organs. Okay. Just because you're probably thinking, what's she doing here? So I like this because I've read that these are defined as psycho-perceptional data.